James had mentioned kind of the year 1 to year 2 jump for you as a play caller. He had mentioned kind of ideas spreading and that type of thing. How did you go about doing that? Whose brains did you pick, that kind of thing?
Quite a few people. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of guys I trust in this business that that I was able to talk to and do things like that. I mean, it was guys all the way from guys in the NFL, other college coaches at numerous levels, and even, some high school guys, I mean, so it's one of those things where anytime I had an opportunity to sit down and talk ball with somebody, I was going to do it, and we had a chance, when we go recruiting, obviously we recruit the best players in the country, and they usually come from extremely successful programs. I didn't just drop it and drop out. I was going to, talk ball with those guys. And a lot of time it might have even been just philosophy and things like that. So did a number of things like that. Read a couple books, did some things like that too. And quite frankly, at some point you need to stop and organize all those thoughts and make sure that you've got them going in the right direction. So feel really good about where our offensive staff is and where our offensive plan is, and the players had an extremely good summer. So, really excited about where we're going right now.
Hey, Ricky.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. Hey, up front, you guys took some heat last year on the offensive line. How's that development going this year? Where do you think those guys are at?
I think they're in a really good spot. Coach Limegrover did kind of the same thing. We're always going to reevaluate, the ways we're teaching things and things like that. And he was able to do that, and I think our guys have really taken to, the slight modifications that he was able to make. Excited about the way they look. Right now, obviously we don't get to see them in pads or do anything over the summer, but the way they look, the look in their eyes, just the way they're even in the jog throughs and things like that, the way they're seeing things and the communication they're making has been great. So I've been really excited about those guys. We've got guys like Steven Gonzalez, who's played a tremendous amount of football for us. Will Fries has played a lot of ball. Michael Mennett, now the whole season under his belt, that's going to be huge for us. And then we've got some other guys who've been in the program a long time, C.J. Thorpe, Mike Miranda, even Rasheed Walker a year now, Des Holmes, those guys. That experience, even in practice, is going to be huge. So just excited that those guys, the way they're approaching it, and the whole team in general, the mindset they've gone into this offseason with.
Ricky, to sort of piggyback off of Audrey's question, were there specific areas where you felt you needed to improve or did improve the most over the offseason from year 1 to year 2?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously plays that you're going to look at that are you wish you would have called something else, and sometimes they're ones that you guys may notice, and sometimes they're not. But I think that the main thing that for me is going in there, and sometimes it's just mentality and presentation to the offensive players and the offensive staff. I think sometimes that can be a huge part of it. I think the more research I've done on a lot of things, it's about presentation and mentality, and those things are two things that you're always working on, always striving on. It's one thing that Coach Franklin does an unbelievable job on, and so I'm lucky enough to be able to learn from him. And so we've got to be able to go in there, make sure our kids believe in everything that we're saying, and they're going to believe in it because it's well prepared.
Hey, Ricky.
Hello.
Can you speak to the differences and the similarities between this quarterback competition and the one a few years ago between Trace and Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of similarities to it. We were trying to replace a guy that had played a lot of ball for us, and we're going with guys who hadn't played as much, right? And were fairly quote unquote inexperienced, but they were both very talented, very competitive, and I think that's what we have here. We have two we have some smart guys who are very competitive. They're very good friends, so they help each other, which I think is incredibly important. We had a quote up today that we always supersedes me, and those guys, they really buy into that. And it's still about the quarterback position playing well. Not about fighting each other and making sure that our quarterback position can play well, because ultimately, they are the leader of the offense, and where that leadership takes us is how far we're going to go.
Ricky, you waited a long time to be offensive coordinator. I know it was something that was a dream of yours. What did you learn about yourself in year 1 that you can apply to year 2?
You know, I think the thing that, as a general rule, a lot of us, we get to more and more is better, right? So if you're struggling in anything, the answer is immediately, I'm gonna work harder, I'm gonna work more, you know, I'm gonna stay later, I'm gonna do that. And I've realized that that's not the better answer. It's working more efficiently, you know, it's you know, making sure that you're making decisions quickly and accurately and those sort of things. And I think that's something that's really going to help me in the future. So, you know, my natural instinct is just to work harder, and that can't always be the way, right? There's only so much blood in the stone. So you've got to make sure that you get your sleep and so those sort of things. And quite frankly, I've made goals for myself on that this year.
Ricky, over here. What do you remember is 20 years ago at Cornell when you were a first-time college quarterback? Granted, it's not the same level as here, but what surprised you about being a college quarterback for the first time?
What surprised me? Well, what surprised me, first of all, was my coach was pretty big into running the ball, and the very first play was a pass. So that was fairly surprising. And he let me throw the ball a lot that day, so that was also fairly surprising. But the speed of the game, right? You know, just like our freshmen are going to have to adjust to the speed of the game. It's all relative, you know. I learned early that day that when you throw an interception, you don't have to go try to beat Ronnie Lott after him because he's probably bigger and tougher than you. And threw an interception. That was good times. Good to remember that. Yeah, I mean, you know, you're going to learn something all the time. I learned something, you know, my college quarterback coach, who was an offensive coordinator in the NFL for a number of years recently, was just up visiting, and Bill Lazor, he's a great guy, and we talked about some of those things, you know, and it's amazing. To me, it doesn't feel that long ago, but then I look at pictures, and it's significantly long ago. And especially with the haircut I had and the nonsense like that. So it's amazing how that level of football, you know, you think about it, how big of changes there are, but how everything stays the same. It's still always going to be about blocking and tackling in football and being able to create the best angles on blocks and get your guys in space to make it harder tackles. That's what it's always going to be about. It's about that then, it'll be about that forever.
Time for two more for Ricky.
Thank you. Just curious about what you've seen from the addition of Coach Parker with the receivers, and additionally the transfer addition with Weston Carr. How involved were you with, you know, getting him back on board, and what does he bring as clearly one of the, far and away, one of the older guys in that group?
Yeah. Well, for Coach Parker, he's just a tremendous person, and I think that's a huge part of it because his guys trust him, and he knows that they care. You know, he cares about them, and quite frankly, it goes both ways. They care a lot about him and his family. That's a huge part of it. He's a great coach. He knows how to simplify things, very complicated things, and he knows how to simplify it so that he can teach it fast and teach it consistently. So really excited about the way he teaches, the energy he brings to practice, and all those sort of things. In terms of Weston, you know, we were obviously, our whole offensive staff, we recruit together, so we were all very involved in that. The amount of places, you know, the amount of football he's played at the college level is big. Whatever level it's at, it's still big in the production that he's been able to have. So we're excited about what he can bring. His size, he's very smooth and that sort of thing. So he brings a different level than maybe some of our other guys.
Hey, Coach, back here in the corner. With Trace, you knew what you had coming in when you took over the offense. Now replacing the quarterback, do you find it exciting, maybe a little challenging, trying to develop, you know, a certain set of plays to bring out their best skill set for the team in their first year?
Both. You know, a challenge is exciting, right? I mean, it is challenging just because, you know, there's going to be things that these guys haven't seen. But a challenge is exciting. I got a text message from my son today about how he just got Madden 2020 and he had the Steelers and he won 109-0 over the Bengals. And I said, you might want to turn up the difficulty there, you know. you know, his mom's patting him on the back. I'm like, hey, how about we crank it up a little bit there? So, you know, and I told him, hey, having a challenge is exciting. That's what makes life exciting, is challenge. You just are able to walk through life and everything just is handed to you. That's not exciting. That's not rewarding, you know? So it's obviously being around a guy like Trace and watching his development over 5 years was rewarding. But being able to coach guys like Sean Clifford and Will Levis and the two young guys, Michael Johnson Jr. and Taekwon, and then being a guy like Michael Schuster, who provides an unbelievable amount of value in that room. I mean, it's extremely rewarding every day I'm in there, and those guys are very coachable, and quite frankly, it's been a lot of fun.